I'm Kayla Roland, for those of you who don't know me. Before I start, can my mom stand up? Thank you, Mom, for helping me with all of this. I love you so much. Okay, so first slide. Yeah. You may recognize me from being up here singing on Wednesdays or playing keys, which is the picture on the top left. So tonight I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, and then we'll get into my testimony, which is very long, and then we're going to transition into a message. Bless you. So I'm going to be talking about my 3 greatest sources of strength and how I can use those strengths to help me with being a Christian in public school. So I'm 14, turning 15 tomorrow. I have 2 siblings, Haley and Luke. The bottom left picture is a family photo from this past Easter with my mom, and then Luke, and then me, and then Haley, and then my dad. So I'll be a sophomore at Century in the fall. Go Knights. I'm into acting, which is the bottom right picture. That was me when I was 10 or 11 in Frozen Junior. I also like singing and playing piano. I also really like writing fictional stories, and I love animals. The top middle picture is my puppy Mac. He just turned 2. Last July, I had the amazing experience of going to Nazarene Youth Conference, which is the bottom middle picture. That was the morning that we left at like 5:30 in the airport. It was so encouraging to see so many other teens worshiping. And while down in Tampa Bay, Florida, that's when I felt like I should share with you guys. So, yeah. As for my testimony, it's not like a crazy event that changed my life forever, but both my parents were both Christians, so I've grown up in a Christian household. Growing up, I was surrounded by love and godly people. I was christened as an infant in the Catholic Church, which is the picture on the left, on January 24th, 2010. And then on August 7th, 2017, which was exactly 7 years ago, I was baptized by Pastor Lynn Brooks when she was a pastor at Crossroads, which is the middle picture, because I wanted to make my faith public. I was also baptized with my parents. So I didn't have much to say other than my favorite verse is John 3:16, which is the farthest picture on the right. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. John 3:16, NIV. It still is my favorite verse, actually. And as I've gotten older, I found myself kind of struggling with living like a Christian. Social media, public school, and certain people might try to pull you away from that lifestyle. And you might want to give in so you can fit in. But you don't need to be like the people around you, because if everyone was the same, the world would be a boring place. God purposefully created us so that we would be different from everyone else. So how many of you guys know what a sources of strength wheel is? Raise your hands. Yeah, okay. I brought one with me tonight. This is the sources of strength wheel for Carroll County Public Schools. You all should have gotten a handout, of the wheel. Okay, so the possible sources of strength, starting with the light blue section and moving clockwise, are physical health, mental health, family support, positive friends, mentors, healthy activities, generosity, and spirituality. Right now, I want you to pick the 3 you feel are your 3 sources of strength. So the 3 I found myself to be strongest in are positive friends, mental health, and spirituality. I found that I like to surround myself with people who won't try to drag me down, whether it's positive friends, someone I love, or a mentor. Something I want you to think about is, how do you choose your friends? What's your, say, criteria for a good friend? For me, a good friend is supportive, caring, and won't try to make me do things I'm not comfortable with. 1 Thessalonians 5:11 NIV says, "Therefore, encourage one another and build each other up, just as in fact you are doing." I'm very lucky to have found people who meet that criteria. Faith and Grace Lurs, who are here tonight, along with 2 others. Faith and Grace are in the top right picture. It's Grace, and then Faith, and then me. I've known them for quite a while, actually. And before I met them, let's just say that my friends that I chose for me weren't the best friends. It's not that they were bad people, they just didn't have the qualities that I think a good friend should have. Then I met these 2 wonderful people at the end of 2nd grade and the beginning of 3rd grade, love you, when they transferred from another school in the county. The more I hung out with them, the more I realized that these people are the great friends I've been looking for. We've known each other for about 7 or so years now, and I'm so thankful for them. So that was positive friends, and now we're going to move on to mental health, and we're specifically going to talk about stress. Everyone's favorite topic, I know. How many of you stress? You can raise your hands. No judgment. Yeah, me too. For me, I don't like to talk about it because I think that I'm the only one who is stressed. It doesn't make sense to think about that way because everyone stresses at some point. It's not good for me to keep all that stress bottled up inside because sooner or later that bottle's going to crack and then it'll just burst and it probably won't end very well and it'll probably very messy. Yeah. I decided to talk to my mom, shout out, love you, when stress started to mess with my grades and my head. She actually wrote me a letter with a bunch of ways to release stress, like doing the things you love, praying, journaling, and breathing exercises. And the methods are actually very helpful. Matthew 6:33 through 34 says, "But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." These verses have helped me in more ways than I know. Verse 33 has helped me to go to God first instead of keeping everything I'm worrying about to myself. And verse 34 has helped me to realize that I don't need to worry about my future because God already has everything planned out. I've also realized that it's okay to talk to an adult. I used to think that if I went to an adult, people would think less of me. But it's actually really silly to think about it that way. Going to an adult does not mean you're weak. It means you're not perfect, and that's fine. Nobody is perfect except Jesus. Everyone has things they need to work on. And God knows that. But the amazing thing is, he doesn't care if you're not perfect. He loves you nonetheless as long as you accept him. Moving on to spirituality. So what exactly is faith? Well, we can find a great definition of faith in Hebrews 11:1 NIV. Now, faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. Sorry, water. It can be hard sometimes to keep living the Christian lifestyle when you're around people who do not live that way. I've realized that there are ways you can keep up with God, even though people around you might be trying to get you to not live like a Christian. For example, my mom introduced me to an app called Pause. It literally looks like a pause button. It is in my church section on my phone. When you open the app, it looks like the middle picture, and it's based on the books Get Your Life Back and Resilient by John Eldredge, I think. And then when it loads, it has all these different options. So yeah, you pick 2 times a day. For me, I do 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. because at 9 a.m. during the school year, I'm in advisory or homeroom or whatever. And then I'm usually home by 3 when I don't have drama. So basically, it notifies you that it's time for your daily pause. Once you're in the app, there's options for a 1-minute pause, 3-minute pause, 5-minute pause, mental strength, pause and healing, etc. During the pause, it has a specific prayer that it will say, depending on what pause you choose, and it'll pause after every phrase for you to repeat what it says. I think this is a really good time to just reflect and give everything to God. There's also a plan called 30 Days to Resilient. It's 8 to 10 minutes twice per day, once in the morning and once in the evening for 30 days. Each session is part soul care, part reflection, and part contemplative prayer, which is when we use our mind and our heart to recognize God's presence. Timothy 4:12 NIV says, "Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity." As we start heading back to school, people may try to label you and pull you away from God without them knowing. But there are ways to not let the labeling bother you, and there are ways to keep following God. The question is, how you do it. There's something I want you to think about in each of your small groups tonight. First, from mental health, what are your top 3 sources of strength? When you look at the sources of strength wheel, you might think, well, those are all my sources of strength. I want you to pick the 3 you rely on the most when you feel like you want to give up, and when you rely on them, they help you to persevere. How can you use these sources of strength to help you in your Christian journey? Second, which is a slide I added yesterday, so it might not be on there, which is also for mental health, how do you release stress? Are the methods good or bad? Example, eating a lot of ice cream would be bad. And praying would be good. Third, from positive friends. Next slide. Yeah, okay. How do you choose your friends? What qualities do you look for? Maybe you want a friend who doesn't spread gossip or rumors, or a friend who is always honest, or a friend who is always by your side. And finally, from spirituality, how do you stay focused on God during rough times? Remember, don't try to let others drag you down. You remain exactly how you're supposed to be, and God loves you, no matter what. That's it.